right. Well, you guys, welcome back. If you are new here, we are the Habit team. The Habit is a nutrition coaching company made for women by women. Our program is built for you with coaches who put your goals, lifestyle, and personality first. If you want to learn more about us, head to the episode notes or go to thehabit.com. That's habit with a Y to either request more information or book your free discovery call.
Hello and welcome back to the Habit Podcast. This week it is Coach Carly and Coach Stephanie here. We're going to be chatting about a concept that sometimes is foreign to a lot of people in the weight loss world. I feel like there's so many programs out there that you can join and do and so many tactics to lose weight. But the missing piece, I feel like, is a lot of times that maintenance phase. And that's kind of what we're here for at the Habit is like we really preach maintenance. Like most of your life should be spent in maintenance. So we're going to kind of dive into maintenance, why it might feel hard, what things you can do in maintenance to get that skill set kind of down and really exercise that muscle. But before we jump into that, I'm going to start with a little bit of an icebreaker. Um,
Oh boy.
so, so if someone was to follow you around for a week, Stephanie, what habit of yours would most surprise them?
That's a hard one. Would most surprise them? I think number one, people would be most surprised at how much I eat for sure and how often I eat. Trying to think of like a really weird one that I have. I don't know. Oh my gosh.
Mine's not very weird, but it's kind of in the same realm of yours. I little bites and snacks throughout my day that like don't go tracked. They don't go in my macros first app. Like, oh, my kid's not finishing this. I'm going to grab this. Like all day, I have these little tiny, my husband has actually coined, they're called Carly snacks because I literally
my
like, oh,
gosh.
it's just a little bit of this and a little bit of this. So I feel like I typically set like my macros a little bit lower to kind of account
I
for
get that.
that, but they're just untracked.
Yeah. I get that. I think I do. That's like the one thing that people notice about me is how often that I eat and they don't realize that. And like I'm eating like my third meal at work before people eat breakfast and they're like, "What are you doing? Like you're literally eating chicken and rice at 11 a.m." I'm like,
Yes.
"Guys, this is my third meal." Like
That's
this is just
exactly what
how
I
it
was gonna
is.
say. Is like by the time you're like it's like your second or third meal, like you're on to lunch foods at
Yeah.
10, 11 a.m. because you're like, I've already had my breakfast and I've had my snack or whatever, and now I'm having this next
Yeah.
meal. And it's like totally foreign for people.
And I think butter, another one is butter, how much butter I eat.
Yes, I love butter.
I don't that's just become like within the last, I guess, like half of a year, I've been craving butter and it has to be Kerrygold
Yes.
salted butter. And I literally like I will eat it plain. It's the weirdest habit I have I have accumulated, but literally butter. That's another one that I can think of off the top of my head.
I imagined you just eating like a stick of butter and it just like grossed me out. But I used to, when my
No.
daughter was younger, I used to actually just feed her butter just to get her calories in. I'd give her spoonfuls of Kerrygold butter.
Yeah, it's seriously good. If I'm putting butter on like bread, I will take an extra like thing on the knife and I'll eat it plain and
Oh
my
my God.
family is like, "This cannot be happening." I'm like, "I'm sorry, like I'm just craving it. I don't know why." So I'm going to dive into that craving and just accept it for what it is.
Well, and that kind of connects a little to like what we're talking about today is I think both of us, it's probably safe to say that we are not in a deficit, that we're in this
Mm,
maintenance phase of our life. And that's what kind of gives us that wiggle room to have the extra slab of butter as you're buttering your toast or have those
yeah.
untracked little bites and snacks throughout the day is like we're not so hyper focused on being in a deficit, on losing weight, but we've built like the foundation to be able to have the little bites and snacks throughout the day and it not be the end of the world. And if the scale spikes up one day, like we're not making like these knee-jerk reactions. So we've built that kind of maintenance phase in and we're kind of used to that.
Right. But I think there on that same token, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what comes with maintenance and it's not Like, just because you're in a maintenance phase doesn't mean it's like a free for all and there's no structure. And like, there really isn't that much of a difference between maintenance and deficit as far as like the foods that I'm consuming. Maybe there are little tweaks and swaps there, but obviously there's more food volume consumed. Um, but there is more wiggle room. But at the same time, I don't think that a lot of people understand that there still needs to be some sort of structure and habits that are continued throughout a maintenance phase, so we don't enter this, like, yo-yo thing, which is
Yeah.
where I think a lot of programs do fall short because they all teach you the structure of a deficit, and a lot of people thrive on that structure, and then once that program or diet ends, then they're like, "Okay, how do I move into more of, like, an intuitive or maintaining this kind of physique or these goals that I achieved without having to actually be as structured." So I think that is where the line is like can
Yeah.
be crossed too easily if you don't really have that structure.
Yeah, and I think even, like, at The Habit, we've kind of evolved when, I first started coaching here, we had, like, a 12-week or a 16-week program, I think, and I think we've
Mhm.
realized, like, we don't offer that anymore, like, 12 weeks, like, because we can't teach you how to be successful, like, we're not here to do just a quick deficit and send you on your way, and we found that, like, we really wanted to be the whole package for clients of, like, we wanna teach you everything, so even us, like, as a coach, as a business, like, we totally see that, like, you have to have that maintenance phase, and we've evolved into that of, like, we have to teach you this because that's where so many people's success ends, is the end of the deficit, and then you don't have no idea what to do because, like you said, like, you're in this almost all or nothing mindset of, like, you're in the deficit and you're doing all of these things, all of these habits, and then when it's over, it's like, "What do I do? Where do I go from here? How do I go into maintenance?" It's like this really foreign concept because you think like, "Oh, well, I've done the deficit thing. Now I just go back to normal," and all of your guardrails fall down. So I feel like maintenance is really surprisingly hard because you actually have to keep up with those routines and habits, and not a lot of people know how to do that or how to go from what you need to do in a deficit to what you need to do in a maintenance. What do you feel like is maybe the biggest difference between a deficit and a maintenance, maybe besides the food volume?
I think the mindset, honestly, has a lot to do with being in maintenance. You said like, how do I get back to normal after my deficit? Well, what is normal? Like nobody knows what that normal is. So I think that it's really important to maybe have a coach during that maintenance time. Like I have a client right now that is like itching to come. She wants to stay in a deficit for a few more weeks, which is I'm fine with. But she's like itching to get into maintenance because she's never had a coach during that time. And so she's never really known what that normal is supposed to look like for her, or feel like for her. Um, but another big difference is as far as training goes, I'm sure you know that when you're in a deficit, you're not training like as much to your potential as you can
No.
as if you were in maintenance. Um, so noticing those changes as well, I think is really cool to see in a maintenance
Yeah.
phase. And I don't think people put that together either. Like, oh, just because I'm in maintenance doesn't mean I'm not progressing. Like I
Yeah.
feel like the majority of your progress comes from your maintenance phase. And then you just go into a deficit to maybe show that a little bit more. Um,
Yeah.
aesthetically, obviously.
So I mean, maintenance, I feel like is the hard part now because so many women they've worked the muscle of dieting and eating less and being in a deficit. So maintenance has now become this super hard thing because people don't have that mindset of longevity. They want to see the quick results of
Mhm.
losing weight. So they have to change their mindset. And that's like super a very important part of maintenance because you have to realize like you're going to do this for the rest of your life. If you don't figure out your mindset around your food, around your training, around having this longevity piece to it, you're not
Mhm.
going to be successful in the long term. You know, Maintenance has less urgency and it has less visible feedback. So you're not seeing your measurements drop down continuously or your weight drop down or the difference in your pictures. But
Right.
there are so many big wins to being in maintenance. Like you're getting that mental break, you're getting the physical break, and you're just working on the boring part. It like the boring, kind of uncomfortable part of not seeing that
Mhm.
constant change, the visible feedback. And that's what feels so hard. It's like, no, I feel like I should be seeing these big changes. But these big changes that are happening in maintenance are more internal than they are external.
Right. I mean, they're a little bit of both.
Yeah.
There
Yes, of
are
course.
external changes as
Yes.
well, but a big thing is internal. And also, like eh, the whole nervous system thing and stress thing that's going around now, as everybody's noticing their stress levels are up, their nervous system is taking a hit, and all of these diets and deficits are not helping that cause. Now that's I feel like that's not to say that there are some people that absolutely do need to be in a deficit and should be in a deficit at that time. Like there are definitely places and circumstances where a deficit is needed. But for the longevity piece of this, I think learning how to be in maintenance and sustain yourself for longevity and for ease of living and for strength is really important.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people are missing that piece.
And a lot of people think that, when they go into maintenance, they're going to lose all their progress or they're going to gain weight because they're going to be eating more. But maintenance does not mean that you are just going to gain weight. Yes, there might be a little bit of an upward tick on the scale in the beginning as we start to increase your food volume, but that should level out. Um, but with that being said, some people do regain weight in maintenance.
Mhm.
But it's because, not because maintenance failed, but it's really like your structure disappeared. Like you didn't keep those guardrails up. And you said it earlier is deficits and maintenance, they're really actually kind of similar, in terms of the habits and the food that you're eating.
Mhm.
But when you start to regain your weight, that's when those habits are changing. That's when your routines are changing. Maybe you're drinking a little bit more. Maybe your weekends get a little bit more relaxed. Um, Movement drops down maybe a little bit. Maybe you're like, you know what? I'm so tired of what I'm doing in this deficit. And that's where people start to kind of regain their weight back. And that's not what's supposed to happen in maintenance.
Right. And I think that's why a lot of people, when they come out of a deficit and then they go into maintenance, they feel like crap because they just have this, okay, like a relaxed feeling over them that they can start going back to, eating all this processed food and all the
Hmm.
sugar and all the alcohol. And anybody who has spent a long enough period of time fueling their body correctly, with lean proteins and whole foods, vegetables, greens, things like that, and then you go introduce all of these things in abundance, you're going to feel that hit. And it's not going to make you feel very good. And that's a lot of people like spiral into that as well. And
Hmm.
then they're just yo yoing. So, I think people are very surprised to see how similar maintenance is and a deficit is as far as overall health, what you want to do for your overall health
Yeah.
in that phase after a deficit.
And I have one client specifically right now that I'm thinking about that, we've really had this learning experience this time in maintenance because we've been together for a while, but there was a big amount of weight to lose. And so we spent a lot of the time in a deficit, but now we've spent this time in maintenance and we've seen, the scale kind of ticking up and ticking up and ticking up. But she's had that growth mindset to have that idea of, oh my gosh, wait, no, like it is more of like a deficit. I need to have these guardrails up still. Like she stopped moving as much and she had more treats as much. And today in her check-in, she was like, you know what? I actually I ate the things that I necessarily didn't want to eat, but I knew that they were going to be
Mhm.
nourishing for my body. She's like, am I an adult now? Because I actually like can hold these guardrails up. I'm like, yeah, that's what this success is going to look like. She's realizing that, oh my gosh, maintenance does kind of have to look a lot like a deficit in terms of keeping your guardrails up, not having as many treats throughout the week. Like, it just doesn't mean that it's over in between your deficit cycles. Like, you still have to put in effort with nourishing your body and getting your movement in and taking care of yourself. It's just that fine line. That's like where you're just trying to find the balance there of like, how much treats can I have in my maintenance, or how many drinks can I fit in where I still feel really good, where I still am
Right.
sleeping good, where I'm still training good, or I'm still present with my kids. I'm still good. Like, I have the energy. So you really have to find that balance of what routines and habits you're keeping from a deficit and where you're going to get a little bit more lax.
Right. And I am still learning this as well. Like with you, I'm sure like you don't just all of a sudden have this down pat. Like
No.
honestly, the past few weeks I have been eating so much more sugar than normal, and I went out last night and I had a burger, fries, and I even had a beer. And I don't drink anymore
Yeah.
really. Like I don't know. I wanted a beer. So I had a beer. My workout today, it took me like close to 3 hours because I was resting so much between. Like I was not on my game, and I knew it was because of all the sugar I've been having and a drink that I had last night. So you kind of these things also open your eyes to say like, okay, what's worth it and what's
Yep.
really not worth it. Like now I know like it's really not worth it for me to eat like that or me to drink
Yeah.
like on
And
a Sunday night.
and
Like
everyone has
it's just
their
not
own
worth it.
And everyone has their own things that they enjoy. Like, to you and me, it's probably not worth it to have the drinks. Like, I'd rather sleep really good and have a really good workout.
Same.
Like, I enjoy my workouts. Like, I enjoy pushing myself, and I know that if I drink, I'm not gonna have that great of a workout, and I'm not gonna feel that good, and then that's gonna kind of affect the rest of my day if I'm not feeling good in my workout. So, to us, like, that's not worth it, but to someone else, like, you have to decide, like, "Okay, is this drink worth it to me?" Like, social, going out, like, having your dinner parties or visiting your kids or your family, traveling, whatever, like, you have to decide what's worth it to you in maintenance, but also, again, finding that, like, that little line, you toe the line of, like, what's worth it and what's not, and I need to kind of you gotta keep yourself in check, and again, the word guardrails, like, you have to have some sort of guardrails.
Right, because if you're always feeling like crap in maintenance, then you're gonna think that you always need to be in a deficit,
Yep.
and that's not a good mindset to be in, that's
Yeah.
not the right place to be, because then you're always gonna think, "Okay, well, in order for me to feel good, I'm gonna need to
Yeah.
restrict or be in a deficit." And I also think that this is why we don't do extreme deficits either,
Mhm.
because I feel like the more extreme the deficit and the more rigid the deficit is, the greater the bounce is into
Yes.
maintenance where like you go overboard. And that, you know, you've this this is just coming to my mind now, but you have a past of bodybuilding
Mhm.
and you know that that comes with not just a deficit, it's a very restrictive
Yes.
deficit of food choices. And I dove into that a little bit last year too, of meal timing and what you can and cannot eat and what you have to eliminate from your diet. And I just wanted to go through it just to kind of educate myself.
Mhm.
And, but that deficit was not like the deficits that we coach.
No.
And I can totally see how it backfires with all of these bodybuilders,
Mhm.
and bikini athletes after if they don't have structure after that. You you're like a fiend. Like your
Yes.
body is starving for all of these things that it has been missing. Um, so that just reminded me, like, it also depends, like, this is why we don't do such extreme deficits either, because it then makes the transition into maintenance that much harder to kind of have structure because
Yeah.
your body is like legit starving itself.
Yeah, and then that first sign of being uncomfortable in maintenance, like, you're you get into maintenance and you see that little tiny bit of a tick up in a scale or whatever, or you don't see yourself as lean as you were in the deficit. Now that
Mhm.
knee-jerk reaction, you're anxious about the number on the scale. You're like, "Nope, I need to go back into a deficit. That's where I feel the best." When really it's your habits, like we were talking about earlier, of, like, you see a scale tick up, you've been having a little bit more sugar or the beer or whatever, just because the number goes up or you're feeling uncomfortable, you're not feeling your best, your energy is low, doesn't mean you need to go back into a deficit. It just means you need to check in with yourself a little bit in maintenance and maybe reel some things back in. There's going to be weeks where you go on vacation or there's a holiday or whatever, and the scale is going to go up, but that's part of maintenance. Like, it is completely normal to see the scale go up in maintenance. That doesn't mean you have to go into a deficit again. You just have to work the muscle of being in maintenance and get used to the fact that it's not going to be linear. You're not just going to stay the one weight the entire time. You're going to have the weeks where you enjoy yourself and the scale fluctuates up, but you just have to learn to, okay, let's get back to my routines a little bit more because I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. My weight is kind of off or my energy's off. My workouts aren't as great. Okay, I need to check in with myself and how have I been with my macros or how have I been with
Right.
my water? How have I been with my sleep and check in? It doesn't mean you just go back to a deficit. It's that maintenance muscle that you have to work and get better at. Like, you and I are still working that muscle and figuring out like where we feel our best.
Correct. And it's not deficit into straight to intuitive eating. Like that, I feel like, okay, everyone, they go into a deficit and they're like, okay, I'm going to go into more intuitive eating, which is a fine mindset to have, but you need to have that structure of tracking and maintenance first to then know what to then go into intuitive
Yeah.
eating, because now you're training yourself to know, okay, how much protein, how much carbs, how much fats do I need to
Yeah.
maintain myself and feel good? And then you can go into intuitive eating, knowing what that structure looks
Yeah.
like.
It's like, how do I feel in between my meals? Like, what does that hunger feel like in maintenance?
Mhm.
And how do I feel after my meals? How full do I feel? So, portion sizes without having to track. You have to practice it while you are tracking. So, okay, check in with yourself before you eat a meal in maintenance. Okay, how hungry do I feel? And then after you're done eating, okay, how full do I feel? How did that fill me up? What did my portion sizes look like? And then you can kind of ingrain that into your memory and how you're feeling and put that into place for intuitive eating. So checking in with how you feel before and after your meals. So you can't do that unless you're actually tracking and building that muscle when you first get into maintenance.
Right. These are also ranges too. Like,
Yeah.
to think about maintenance as a range, it's not just like, okay, on these exact specific calories I
Mhm.
have to stick to maintain myself. Like, think of it more as a range. So it is less daunting in that way that, like, okay, like somebody can maintain themselves on, let's say, 2,000 calories as well as 2,200 calories. Like, that somebody can have that big of a range to
Yeah.
maintain themselves. But the goal is to be on that higher end to maintain yourself on as much food as as you can
I know that's
without
where I wanna be.
you don't want to be gaining weight exponentially, but you do want to try to get your maintenance up as much as you can, and then you'll even see that translate into your deficit later on when you don't have to lower your calories quite as low anymore.
Exactly. So, I mean, like you said, like your weight's not going to go up exponentially, but remember, like, you have more food volume. Your carbohydrates are getting stored as glycogen in your muscles. So
Mhm.
you're going to have a little bit of a higher number on the scale just because of those things. You're eating more food, you have more glycogen stores, and that is not a bad thing. That's a really good thing. You're having more energy. So, in
And
maintenance,
hopefully
though,
putting
there's,
some muscle on.
oh, yeah. So in maintenance though, like, it doesn't have to be super rigid. Like you were saying, like, you just find some things that kind of work for you. So when you do transition to maybe more of intuitive eating, find some things that work for you without having to track rigidly. Like, okay, I have my staple meals throughout the day. I know I'm going to have a breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Maybe I'll fit in a snack or two there, making sure every meal has a good protein source in it. You have some kind of meals that you fall back on. Like, maybe you have 8 to 10 meals that you prep and you just have them on rotation. Like, you do two this week, a different two the next week. So you have these kind of staples that you're falling back on, and not just reinventing the wheel. So if you have these kind of routines built in, it gets a little bit easier to maintain and not feel like you're so rigid in a deficit, but you're feeling that success of being in a maintenance.
Right, right. like I said, like a lot of times the meal choices don't even change. It's the portion sizes. Like maybe in a deficit you're having a half a cup of rice. Maybe in maintenance you're having a full cup of rice with that meal. It's not, so drastically different. But of course, yeah, there's more wiggle room for those fun things, meals out, um, treats and stuff. But that's where the yo-yoing comes in when you don't have any structure in that.
Yeah, I think you had a really good point with just not like it's a range. You don't have to be so on it. You just maintain that range. And I think a really big key of being in maintenance is not having emotional reactions to every change you see in your body or on the scale. I think you look at things with a really long term and check in with yourself periodically. Not have emotional reactions to everything on the scale. You just
Mhm.
give yourself a range that you're going to fall within. Have some staple meals that you fall within, or a staple routine of breakfast, lunch, dinner. You know what your meal times are. And then of course, we have social situations like weekends, events, travel, birthdays, just trying to plan ahead for those things and then put into action those intuitive eating habits. And I think that's going to give you some success throughout maintenance and make it feel a little bit less daunting.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
If there was one other thing you feel like would make a client successful in maintenance or maybe have less anxiety about maintenance, what would you say that is?
I would say, to broaden the lens of what we're seeing as far as diet and exercise. I know that aesthetics is huge for so many people. I get that. You get confidence, that's very important. You want to feel and be healthy and feel confident in yourself, of course. But there's a lot bigger of a picture here to look at as far as, a whole lifestyle. There's no rush to get to be like this smallest version of yourself. First of all, you're not going to feel as healthy that way, but there's a lot to be said about learning foundational habits to sustain yourself throughout your entire life, whether that be through diet, through exercise, through the combination of the two. Um, but I think the majority of people will say that you feel better, you have more energy, you sleep better, your digestion is better, you feel stronger in your workouts when you're fueling in maintenance and you're fueling adequately. So I think that learning to love all of these phases the same, not just wanting to be in a deficit all the time, is important. And I don't think a lot of people get to realize that because they don't give themselves the chance to really do maintenance.
Yeah.
So they don't know how that feels. So I think that if you give it a shot and give it the time that it deserves, then you will realize how much better you actually feel when you are fueling adequately.
Yeah. I want whoever is listening now to think about, do you really want to be in a deficit dieting for the rest of your life? If the answer is no, then you have to try out maintenance. Maintenance does not mean you're done with a weight loss journey, but it's going to give you that missing piece to have results be sustainable and not have to be in a deficit for the long term. Maybe you go back into a deficit to finish out your journey of losing that weight, but once you learn how to actually do maintenance, that gives you the freedom for the rest of your life. Once you're
Mhm.
done, you get to that, where you feel really comfortable, confident with yourself. Once you're done with that deficit, now you have the key of freedom for the rest of your life of how to maintain all of that work that you've put in, maintain that success that you've had in the deficit. So if you don't want to diet for the rest of your life endlessly, you have to learn how to work out the maintenance muscle, and that's going to give you that key to success for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Internal health first, always. Internal health you start with, and it always leads to your external progress.
Well, that is all that I have today. I hope this broadened your horizon. I hope you got to see a little bit more about working out the muscle that is maintenance. But we will catch you on the next episode. Everyone have a great day.
Bye.